Old pal Emac coming to you with one. Adam, ship my money, sure. Assuming we are going live here. So, yes, there we are. Saturday baseball, Adam. We got 6 early games, we've got 6 late games, and we've got 3 right there in the middle. We will be covering all of them because, hey, that's what we do here on Saturdays. So, we have a good time in store for everyone. I am just going to send out our little tweet here, and then we will be all set. But chat, go ahead, put some comments in there. Let me know what's going on. What are you guys thinking about today? Was it a good night last night or a bad night last night? I had a bad night across the board in baseball and NBA. Who knew, Adam? Who knew that DeLon Wright and Osimo Caruso were going to be the keys to last night's slate? I didn't even consider DeLon Wright.
Oh, you should have watched the strategy show with me and Josh. It airs around 9:15 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings.
All right. Did you mention him?
Yeah.
Impressive. Okay. Well, there we are. Sadly, I was out at the old job interview, so I missed that. But that's okay.
Gotta prioritize.
Yeah, exactly. Let me think. Paycheck or the DFS MLB strategy show, or the DFS MLB NBA strategy show. Let's see. We've got some fun here. Let me just get my windows going. We've got free content up there, courtesy of yours truly, Adam. We've got the free spotlight hitters and stacks article where I cover one from the early slate and one from the main slates. Yesterday, my so here's as I'm setting this stuff up. I know you like to troll a few people that take some early victory laps. There are people that take victory laps when they shouldn't at all on Twitter, which gets to be. I don't really think it's annoying. I just think it's embarrassing, Adam. You know, it's crazy. What are your thoughts on the victory laps? I know you love to troll them, so you don't want them to stop.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I find them annoying in general, but I don't know, for the most part, I think people taking victory laps on Twitter are the people that aren't getting things right very often. So that's why they're usually pretty easy to troll.
It could be. So yesterday, wait for it. This is how this works. Both my stacks in the article nailed it. Had the Dodgers, had the Bo Sox. But if you dig a little deeper, most of the guys I wrote up weren't the ones doing the damage. It was other players on the team. So even when you're right, you aren't fully right. So just let it be. Put out nice, steady content, and it'll all be good. Speaking of nice, steady content, use the promo code MLB Strategy to get 50% off any 1-month package here at Osimo. All right, game by game, Adam, we are jumping on in here. We have our first one. It is going to be, wait for it, the Washington Nationals taking on the Citi Field Warriors. The New York Mets. We've got an intriguing matchup here with one Patrick Corbin. On the other side, we have Steven Matz. You and I talked a little bit about this one in depth on the Early Bird podcast. I ended up deciding to utilize the Nationals as my stack today or the featured stack that I'm writing up, because I wanted people to know that you don't always have to pick the highest implied run total to find a good stack. I mean, the Nationals, relatively cheap. They're boasting 5 players that are well above average in righty-lefty matchups, and I think people may not look at them the same without Bryce Harper, without Daniel Murphy, and without the injured Trey Turner. What do you got here in the first game? Let's start with Matz.
Yeah, I think Matz is one of the more talented pitchers on the slate, potentially, but he's always been a guy that is like, he'll show flashes of being good and then he'll be really bad for a while, and he's just been inconsistent. But one thing that throughout the last couple of years has been the case for Matz is that normally during his stretches where he's good, he's throwing his slider a lot. He's had some arm issues, and he tends to just kind of go through stretches where he doesn't throw it very much. He threw it 2% of the time in his first start of the year. That concerns me coming into this start against a Washington team that does have some speed. Matz is really, really bad at holding base runners. Does have some speed, does have some right-handed power. I actually like Washington bats here. Anthony Rendon's one of my favorite hitters on the slate. Victor Robles I like as a contrarian one-off in tournaments. Batting ninth, shouldn't have much ownership, but has a ton of speed, has some pop. I like the spot for him. And then Brian Dozier, 2,100 on FanDuel is a really nice price tag on him. 4,200 on DraftKings is fine as well. I think it's just a pretty dangerous lineup for Mats to face here.
All right, and we don't have the ownership up yet, but we'll check and see. When you're calculating ownership for stacks, how do you do that? Do you say, okay, top 4 divide by 4? Do you run the whole team divide by however many hitters? How do you do that? Or do you just say, fourth most owned guy, that's the most it could be on any particular stack, and that's your number? Is there a preference that you have if you're looking at things?
I don't really look at full stacks all that much. I just kind of look at the individual hitters.
I mean to see what your opponents are doing or what the field is doing.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I mean, I aggregate the ownership for the hitters in each lineup just to have some sort of idea, but I don't focus on that as much as I focus on individual hitters.
All right. I was just more looking for the measuring stick, because when they say, oh, it's chalky, but if the third highest owned guy is 10%, that's
right.
A very chalky stack. Let's see here. Looking to the other side, we do have Patrick Corbin, who is, I guess, arguably the number 2 pitcher for the Nationals. Where would you rank Corbin versus Steven Strasburg?
I think he's better than Strasburg. I'm not sure that I haven't looked at numbers side by side to know if they actually bear that out, but at least from a DFS standpoint, Corbin is, in my opinion, definitely the second best pitcher on the Nets.
Yep, that's kind of where I was landing as well. How are you looking at Corbin on the overall slate here? He is one of our more expensive options, but it is a good spot for him. So we're going to find a little savings here and there. It shouldn't be a problem to get him on our team. And there's nobody really scary, in my opinion, on the Mets outside of Wilson Ramos, maybe Michael Conforto a little bit. But otherwise, they've got some more or less, some of these guys have small sample sizes against lefties, but punch and Judy hitters, pesky. But Nimmo, not really going to scare anybody. Congratulations to Brandon Nimmo for hitting a leadoff home run today, now that I've said that. Robinson Cano, not that worried about. Davis, not much. What are you doing to get Corbin in your lineups? And is he your number 1 guy on the slate?
Yeah, he is my number 1 guy. It's in part because the slate doesn't have a lot of good pitching. But the Mets are a team that does scare me, more this year than they did last year. They do have better hitters, but most of the above average hitters in this lineup are left-handed, which, certainly doesn't hurt in Corbin's case. But he's really good against righties as well. Pete Alonso is a good hitter, top hitting prospect. Wilson Ramos, one of the best hitting catchers in baseball. So it's not an easy lineup, but the fact that Conforto, Cano, and Nimmo are all left-handed, certainly doesn't hurt. Keon Broxton being in the lineup adds some power, but it also adds another 30-plus strikeout percentage guy. So you have him and Ahmed Rosario towards the bottom that'll strike out a lot. You obviously have the pitcher in Mats. And Corbin's stuff is just good enough where I think he's clearly the number 1 pitcher on the slate in terms of talent. And I don't think that there are enough expensive bats that we need to pay up for that it's going to make it too difficult to get to him.
All right. Sounds good. Let's head on to our next game here. We have the Kansas City Royals in Detroit taking on the Motor City Kitties. You've got Jorge Lopez for the Royals. For Detroit, you've got Southpaw, Mike Moore, and then let's see. Yeah, the bats. Not that terrifying. If we look to Moore here, he does have, he's a meh pitcher. He is a little below league average in strikeouts, a little above league average in walks. Same story for ground balls, fly balls, etc. But looking over here to the Royals, outside really of Merrifield, Mondesi, and Jorge Soler, not really anybody that I'm intrigued by. I think Soler makes a tremendous one-off bat today if we're doing a little home run hunting, because you got 3 outfield spots on most sites. He's 34 on FanDuel, 38 on DraftKings, which is very appealing, 75 on Fantasy Draft, and then 15 over there on Yahoo. Kind of in the middle there for Yahoo, but with his home run upside there, that is an intriguing spot. Talk to me about Moore and his opponents, the Royals, today.
And Moore is one of the, I guess, 4 pitchers that I expect to have any sort of heavy ownership on today. And again, it's in part just because, look at the options on the slate, but he has an appealing price tag. He's only 7K on DraftKings. He's 6,700 on FanDuel. And he's weird. Like, he's one of these pitchers that if anyone would teach him like what pitches he should actually be throwing, he'd be better than he is. His fastball is trash. His curveball is good. His changeup's good. He gets swings and misses. He limits he limits damage against. And if you go back and if you look at last season before he was kicked out of the starting rotation, he had pretty healthy double-digit swinging strike percentages in a lot of starts. He was at I think 13% in his first start, going from memory this season. It's just that he throws this fastball that just gets absolutely blasted, and he throws it too often. But outside of Merrifield, Mondesi, and Soler, there's not really any hitting to be concerned about in this Kansas City lineup. Pretty much the entire lineup, well below average against left-handed pitching over the last couple of years. And I'll take my chances with Moore just because I think he's better than, or at least in a more favorable spot than most of the other pitchers on the slate.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm landing on this as well, because hey, every slate is a new day. It's a new matchup. We have ever-shifting price points, etc. Oh goodness, my computer's running low on storage space. This is not good because I don't save anything on my computer, Adam. Why did it give me a warning? I've never seen this before. Is this why the fan's running nonstop right now? Perhaps we have a memory leak. Oh, that would be fun because I would have no idea how to address that. But let me see here. Looking at Moore, he has 1.4 home run per 9 in his last 1,000 righties faced. That is, not that great. Nearly a 2 against lefties. So he's a guy we're going to be targeting against some days. Today, we're going to be riding with him. Looking to the other side here, Jorge Lopez. He is someone I can't figure out, Adam. He's not great against lefties here. Last 2 seasons, he's faced 144. All right, that's not the biggest sample size, but he has just a 14% strikeout rate, a 10% walk rate. That's not a good combination. 1.3 home runs per 9. And then if we look at him here going against righties, he's been reasonably solid. Again, small sample size, just 100 batters, but he has 18% K rate, not allowing much power, and which I think could get him a little bit in trouble because his hard hit rate is approaching 50% against righties. What are you going to do with Lopez today?
Yeah, I'm interested in the Detroit bats. Lopez actually, out of every pitcher on this early slate, had the highest expected WOBA against right-handed hitters last season at 379, only a 9.7% swinging strike percentage as well. I think he can have some trouble here, especially against the 3 righties at the top of this order. His primary, or his main secondary offering against righties is his curveball, which gets hit hard. And if you go into Baseball Savant, go into StatCast data, Josh Harrison and Nick Castellanos in particular both have hit right-handed curveballs really well over the last couple of years. Lopez doesn't really have anything that scares you. And then the fact that, the pitch that he would go to as, kind of a put-away pitch is really ineffective against the 2 guys at the top of this order. I think that Harrison and Castellanos are both really good one-offs, but you also get a high upside stack in Detroit because Lopez is mediocre at best, and then the Kansas City bullpen behind them isn't very good.
Yeah, definitely the way to go there. Continuing to maneuver through our games, got the first 2 down there. Reminder, we do have MLB Live before lock tonight. That'll go off at 6 o'clock. Myself and Chris Spags. We have a 6-game main slate, so that should be a little bit of fun. Don't forget, you've got the Final Four tipping off tonight. And then just 2 NBA games. 5 o'clock and I think 8 o'clock are the tip-offs for those. Tomorrow, a massive NBA slate because, of course, they are not really playing on Monday because that's the national title game. They only have 2 today going against the Final Four. We will probably have 2, if not 3 shows for NBA tomorrow. So check that out. Fortunately, you won't have to see Adam or myself on either one of those because NBA, it's a mess right now. And then if you want to have some fun with NHL, it's the final day of the regular season. That should be a craptastic mess in and of itself. All right, postponed it long enough, Adam. We've got Tanner Roark. We've got Trevor Williams scoring off here in PNC Park. We did discuss this relatively in length on the Early Bird podcast. They're both kind of a couple of meh pitchers. That's twice I've said that. Am I going to play the meow game next? I don't know. We have these guys, they don't get blown up per se. They don't really have strikeouts, either one of them. Are you leaning more towards the hitters in our 12 team player pool, or are these guys in consideration for your SP2 today?
Tanner Roark's one of my main 4 pitchers on the slate. 6,700 on DraftKings, where you need the 2 pitchers, is appealing. I don't like taking pitchers against Pittsburgh because there's not a lot of strikeouts in the lineup, but there's also not a lot of power either. It is a favorable ballpark for pitchers. But something that stands out with Roark is that he did throw in his first start this season. He threw his slider about 16% more frequently than he was last season. Last season, he averaged about 12% usage on his slider. This year, or in his first start, it was up to 28%. He cut back on his curveball and his changeup. But basically, as a rule of thumb, anytime a pitcher is throwing their slider more, it's not a bad thing for DFS because it's just the hardest pitch in baseball to hit. So when guys start throwing it more, it's usually good. His plate discipline stats in that first start against a very good Milwaukee offense were impressive. 13.5% swinging strike percentage, 38.7% chase percentage on pitches out of the zone. So that's intriguing. And then more than anything, again, there's just limited pitching options on this slate. And Roark's a guy who, even when you look at his, overall career numbers, he's basically an average pitcher that is better at run prevention than he is anything else. At 6,700, if you can just get 6 innings without more than a couple of runs out of him, you're perfectly fine on this slate. So I do think Roark's a pretty reasonable option. Trevor Williams is more expensive than I would like. I just don't buy into whenever he has games where he picks up strikeouts. I just don't buy into it. He throws a fastball like 70 to 75% of the time, doesn't get swinging strikes on really any of his pitches. So I'm not interested in paying an 8K price tag for him against a pretty competent Cincinnati offense.
All right. Figured out what's filling up my computer, Adam. I just went and found the root folder that saves all of these shows that we do on my hard drive. So there we are. Yes, apparently I'm saving a boatload of high intensive, million, what are they? Million KBs, kilobytes, whatever. Shoot, I got a little work to do after the show to rectify this particular situation here. So sorry, making that discovery, I didn't fully catch everything, but I did hear that you do like Tanner Roark. On the other side, look into Williams. Any interest in some of these Cincinnati Reds hitters? I want to see if I have an updated lineup. Schebler, depending on your site, you can get him relatively discounted. He is the one guy that I am somewhat intrigued on. I don't, hate looking to their sprinkling in their top 4, their top 5 in there for a stack here, a secondary stack if you're looking for something, because as we've seen, it's MLB, weird stuff can happen. The Seattle Mariners, Adam, are the number 3 most prolific offense at 7.1 runs per season, and then the Houston Astros 2.3 runs per game. Who would have thought? Small sample size and all, but damn. But we saw weirdness last night. We've seen it all throughout baseball. That's what we talk about. Variance for. We've seen that all throughout the baseball season. So in any event, what do you like here, if anything, from the Reds? Ooh, they have Derek Dietrich. I forgot where he landed.
Yeah, not that interested in Cincinnati here. Trevor Williams is a good enough real life pitcher. He just isn't a very appealing fantasy option. And it's also a pretty weak Cincinnati lineup. Like if you were someone, if you're someone who's higher on Trevor Williams for whatever reason than I am, and you were on the fence about what you were going to do with him, this is like the best lineup you could have possibly hoped for. No Eugenio Suarez in there, Kyle Farmer, Kurt Casale at the bottom. Neither one, a dangerous hitter. So
yeah, plus the pitcher. It's like they have lined up 5 outs for Trevor Williams here in their batting order.
Yeah. I mean, Peraza doesn't really strike out, but he's not a good hitter either. So pretty much as unappealing a lineup as the Reds can possibly run out there. So, I mean, if you get to some Puig or some Votto or Schebler or whatever, that's fine. But they're not guys that I'm prioritizing.
All right, that hits our 1 p.m. games. Let's head on here to the 2 o'clock hour. We have Jake Arrieta in Philadelphia. They are hosting the Minnesota Twins with Michael Pineda. Arrieta, I think we're possibly just going to kind of I don't know that dismiss is the right word, but he's not going to be bubbling up based on his price for me anywhere. Just not enough strikeout upside. But Pineda, 30 years old, Adam, 30 years old, has not yet realized his talent, or has he? Is this what we can expect from Pineda? He did go like, what was it, 40 or 50 pitches in his first start. It was cold there. He won about 4 innings. That was by design. Hoping he gets 80, 90 pitches today. Either one of these guys, someone that you will roll out or someone you want to target against.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest question mark on the slate as far as pitchers go is Pineda. He was throwing between 70 and 80 pitches in the spring, and then in his first start of the season went 40 pitches, pitched well, was pulled. They wanted Martin Perez to come in behind him. Um, no idea how many pitches he throws today. Haven't seen anything about it. Um, Also a very difficult matchup for him, though, going against Philadelphia. So it's not like you're expecting a cakewalk if he does get a full allotment of pitches. Also, a little bit concerning, again, keeping in mind that it was like 30 degrees in his first start, but a little bit concerning, his fastball velocity in that game was like 90.5 miles per hour, which is down a few miles per hour from his career averages. So, not the most exciting thing to see when you're talking about someone coming back from Tommy John surgery. I think there are a lot of question marks on him, but I also think that he's very clearly more talented than guys like Tanner Roark and Matt Moore that are priced around him. So, if you're playing 150 lineups, getting some of him, I think, makes sense in tournaments as long as we don't have him projected to be really popular. If he is projected to be popular, then I really don't have interest. But I think I'll probably end up with more Philadelphia stack exposure anyway, just because they're one of the more talented offenses on the slate. They are in one of the most favorable hitters parks on the slate. No Real Muto weakens the lineup a bit, but you do still have, Hoskins, Harper, Segura, and McCutchen 1 through 4. So playing both sides a little bit, but I think that if we get some word at some point on Pineda's pitch limit, that would go a long way in deciding what to do with him.
All right, and that's that's just kind of where it's going to be. That as you mentioned, that as the one wild card there could really swing things one way or the other. I agree with you for the Phillies there. Top 4 guys are where we want to go. What's up with our Miguel Franco, who has just been hitting the cover off the ball? Is that a mirage, or is he a luxury now, batting 8th for the Phillies?
And he showed some signs of improvement last year. He was one of the launch angle guys that I'd gotten pretty excited about. I think their base is one of the stronger positions on the slate tonight, so I don't plan on prioritizing him, but he's fine.
Yeah, just one to consider, because if you can get that home run upside from the 8 spot, maybe one less at bat probably than the guys in the top half of the order, but also a lot less popular out there, and Citizens Bank Ballpark is favorable for the old home runs. Next game we have here, we have the Seattle Mariners going into Chicago to take on the White Sox.
We missed Arrieta.
Oops. Well, I don't want to say I missed him. I've crossed him off my list. But go ahead and talk about Jake Arrieta, and what is our how many thousands per strikeout is his price going to afford us tonight?
Yeah, I mean, Arrieta is never the last couple of seasons hasn't been, the most appealing DFS option. And his first start this season, if you look at what he was throwing, it wasn't the best for DFS. I mentioned on Roark that as a general rule of thumb, anytime a pitcher starts throwing more sliders, you will see an increase in strikeouts. Arrieta against righties and lefties in his first start just was throwing a ton of 2-seam fastballs. That's the exact opposite of the rule of thumb with sliders. Guys that are throwing sinkers, 2-seamers, it's like the worst pitch in baseball. It came around because people thought getting ground balls was good. Now that most people understand strikeouts are a lot better, a lot of pitchers are getting rid of it, but Arrieta seems to be throwing it more. So that doesn't make me feel very good about his strikeout chances. But on the other side, Minnesota is running out a lineup that does not have Eddie Rosario, who was my favorite hitter from Minnesota. So that helps Arrieta a bit. I do think that Astudillo batting second is one of the better catching options on the slate. He never walks. He never strikes out. Just someone that, at catcher will put the ball in play is pretty appealing. And he's sitting second in the order. I think Kepler and Polanco are both good plays as well. But beyond that, it's not a very dangerous Minnesota lineup. So more interested in one-offs here than anything.
All right. I'm looking to see the 6 walks in the last game were a little bit concerning, but Well, I mean, I guess dating back over the last 5 seasons, he's only Arrieta's only had one where he's been over 3 walks per nine, which is, I guess, somewhat reasonable. But you're right. The ground ball rate been in the low 50s for 3 of the last 5 seasons. Heck, let's call it 4 because 49.2 is pretty darn close to 50%. So yeah, interesting stuff there on the pitch mix, Adam, and thank you for explaining that. That's one of the things. Um, in the many changing and evolving strategies as more data is available for these organizations, that I think is something we'll want to stay ahead of on the trend. Um, as a general, just overarching question, I know that you and Lafitte are always thrilled when you're finding somebody that's increasing their use on the slider. Is there any reason why more pitchers don't utilize the sliders more? Is it something to do with say pressure? I'm not finding the right word, but pressure on the arm. Is it a strenuous pitch or something of that nature, or is it what's the downside that keeps people from throwing more sliders?
If you don't throw a good slider, it gets hit really, really, really far.
There we go.
Like it, 'cause, I mean, hanging sliders, like it's basically just if it spins in the middle of the plate, you basically have a pitch with no movement that is like the perfect speed for a hitter to hit it. So if you don't have a good one or you can't locate it, you can really get in trouble.
All right.
Also, I think you just run into, and I'm sure it's like in anything where people have been successful their entire life. If you've been a good but not great major league pitcher for 5 years, and some coach tells you to start throwing a slider more, are you gonna actually do it? I'm sure you run into plenty of that as well.
All valid points. So I blame that on Nuke Lelouch, who has taught everybody that they should announce their presence with authority. Back to our Mariners and Chi Sox here. We've got Mike Leake. Strikeouts are trending up, but I'm not going to buy into that. On the other side, you've got Lucas Giolito, who is infuriating Adam, as are most of the White Sox pitchers, Ronaldo Lopez, Giolito, etc. here. Feast or famine, Dylan Covey. Can't wait till we see Dylan Covey once again. Feast or famine here with Giolito, but I'm liking him against the Mariners. I feel like it's a bit of a mirage. They have been all hitting well above their career norms thus far in the season. We'll see the regression monster coming. I don't know if it'll be today, but I want to be there when he shows up for lunch. What do you like from this game?
I think it's a terrifying spot for Giolito, especially because both of the guys that were questionable for this game for Seattle are in the lineup with Encarnacion and D. Gordon. Encarnacion, obviously a big-time power hitter. D. Gordon, a big-time stolen base threat against a pitcher in Giolito who, to this point in his career at least, has not been able to hold runners. So it is a really scary lineup. But, I mentioned the talent with Pineda being greater than guys like Roark and Matt Moore. Lucas Giolito is very, very clearly out of like these SP2 options. Pineda aside, the most talented guy here. He is a former top prospect, good fastball, good off-speed stuff, just as been inconsistent throughout his career. He struggled with control. He, like I said, has been really bad at holding runners. But there were some positive changes in his first start this season. He showed some flashes last year of at times being able to put it together. But in his first start this season, his fastball velocity was up a bit from last season. The vertical movement on his fastball was up as well. So that was good to see. Also, saw from the Pitching Ninja account on Twitter a different arm motion from him, just a little bit shorter, which I'm interested to see if it leads to better control. In his first start, he did throw a lot of first pitch strikes. He was throwing a lot of pitches in the zone, which is good to see. And then if you look on Brooks Baseball, his release points were totally different than last season as well. So a lot of things changing for Giolito. And he was very impressive in his first start. Granted, it was against Kansas City, but he took a no-hitter into, I think it was the 7th inning. I will be going to him as an SP2 in tournaments just because I think that he's more likely to be the guy that like wins you a slate compared to Roark or Moore. I think that Roark is less likely to get absolutely blown up than Giolito is, but I think Giolito gives you the higher ceiling.
All right. Mike Leake throwing the ball over the plate to some power hitters here today. One of your faves, Yoan Moncada. You've got Jose Abreu, Yonder Alonso. Oh, hey, revenge, as long as Alonso remembers he did play for the Mariners for a little while. That's kind of the main three. Daniel Palka truly boom or bust. Should, I guess, be no surprise for us here, but he's one of those guys, Adam, does have multi-home run upside, and he can also go for the golden sombrero at any given time here. What are you considering here with regards to Leak as an SP2 or our Pale Hose here as potential mini stack, complementary stack type players?
Yeah, I'm not planning on getting the much Leak. He's similar to Roark for me, except $700 more expensive on DraftKings, where you need the two pitchers. And he's facing at least an offense with more power. Like there's more strikeouts in the Chicago lineup than the Pittsburgh lineup, but lots of power. And I always get nervous when you're talking about a pitcher like Leak that pitches to contact and he's going up against a team full of high strikeout, high power guys. It's something that we talked about the last couple of slates with Joey Gallo from Texas, where these guys strike out a lot and then they hit the ball really far when they make contact. And you have a pitcher coming in that basically makes them hit the ball. If you look at the power numbers for guys on Chicago, Palka's got a ton of power. Moncada's got a bunch of power. Abreu, Castillo for a catcher has power. Jimenez obviously has power. Yonder Alonso has power. Like there's a lot of power in this lineup, and I would rather go to those guys than Leak. I think it gives us more upside, whether it's one-offs or full stacking this team, just hoping that Leak is missing his spots, because if he doesn't have his command, he gets hit really, really hard. But one-offs especially, I think, are pretty appealing here.
All right, I see, just for fun here in chat there, in the YouTube chat there. D. Gordon scratched. There you go, right on cue. Adam, he did have a pinch hit, stolen base, and scored a run the last time, but looks like he is out. So there we are.
Speaking of Gordon, I didn't mention it when talking about Giolito, but I do like Malik Smith as a one-off here. I'm interested to see if the shorter arm motion for Giolito has any impact on his ability to not limit base stealers, but as of now, I'm assuming that he's still easy to run on, and Malik Smith will try and steal any chance he gets.
All right, I love stolen bases. That just makes me sad that there are not as many out there. When I was growing up, first started watching baseball, of course, we had Ricky Henderson and Vince Coleman that were stealing 100 a year in the AL and NL respectively. Do you think we'll ever see someone steal 100 bases again?
Hamilton doesn't get on base enough.
Yeah,
he would. Mondesi could end up doing it.
Okay, yeah, that's actually a good call out there. He's still young enough, but he's got to hit more singles, Adam. If he gets these extra base hits, it takes away opportunities for steals. Goodness gracious. Wanted to mention, they are talking about Willem, I can't say his first name, Astudillo, potentially as being a rookie of the year. So just going from memory, so kind of how rookie of the year works, I think it's 100. You can have up to 125 or 130 at bats the prior season. If you have less than that, you're still considered a rookie for the following year. And then pitchers, I forget if it's 25 or 30 innings. One of them's like 20. It's like 125 and 30, or it's pitchers is higher than that. Pitchers, I think, is like 50. But in any event, the reason they do that is because of the September call-ups. And they want to encourage them to bring up the younger players in August, September if they're out. And then, if it's somebody who's going to be a rookie of the year or whatever, they still want them, to be able to market that, et cetera, the following season. There is something, a component with how many days you have spent on the 25-man roster, which, of course, up until they make the new rule changes, when they went to the 40-man roster, those days didn't count towards your rookie of the year status. So what they were trying to basically set up in Major League Baseball is just to have some late season call-ups, just so they can get their, quote, cup of coffee and then still come in next year. So if I know Astudillo didn't have the bats, but he may have been on the roster because he was the utility guy at catcher and third base and all of that. So he may have had more days to qualify, but I didn't look that up.
It doesn't matter. He plays in the same league as Vlad Guerrero and Eloy Jimenez.
Well, that was my other question is, I would not have put him in super utility guy. Sure, rookie of the year. Sorry. Magnificent anomaly with the lack of walks, lack of strikeouts. Pretty damn cool. But I guess we're just a bunch of dorks. Anything else here from the Chi Sox or Mariners?
No.
All right. The Pod Squad is in St. Louis taking on the Redbirds. We have the rookie Paddock, taking the bump here for the Padres. Tough matchup for him against a righty-heavy lineup, which at first blush we didn't think that was going to be a huge thing. But Adam, you'll expound on that a little bit, I'm sure. And then on the other side, you have Michael Wacha, who, when he came up before his injury was just, if you go back and look at some of his numbers, he had some amazing numbers. He's, a number 3, number 4 starter at this point. He'll probably be in the league another 5 or 6 years, but he's just not. He's one of those where you're going to get 8 to 10 good starts, and you're going to get a boatload of mediocre starts that really don't do a whole lot for you because the old strikeouts are not always there for him. What do you like here with the hurlers? Let's start off with the Padres rookie first.
Yes, I mean Paddock is talented. I think he's going to be good. But I actually love bats in this game. I expect Paddock will have ownership because he's one of the most hyped about young pitchers. One of the most hyped young pitchers coming into the season. He's coming off of a really good start against the Giants his first time out. But I think this is a spot where, especially assuming he is going to have ownership, that I would much rather be on Cardinals bats here because I have some concerns about him going forward against right-handed hitters. Not to say that he can't be good against them, but if you look at his arsenal, it doesn't play as well against righties as lefties. If you look at the scouting report on FanGraphs, he has a 60 grade fastball, which obviously is really good. He has currently a 60 changeup with future value at 70, which is a plus changeup. His curveball though is like below average to average, and so you have a pitcher that throws hard, but his best secondary offering is much more effective against lefties than righties. Normally, when you get a pitcher with this type of arsenal, they struggle with same-handed hitters, at least relative to how they do against hitters from the opposite side of the plate. And then you look at this Cardinals lineup, and you have a lineup full of very, very, very good fastball hitters. So I don't really have confidence in Paddock being able to get through this lineup successfully by relying on his fastball. So he's either going to be relying on a changeup that is a less effective pitch for basically everyone against same-handed hitters, or a curveball that is clearly his third best pitch. So really interested to see how it goes. There's nothing really that we can even look to in the minor leagues for him. He never pitched above AAA. He threw 37 innings at AA last year. Other than that, he's never even pitched at AA. So it's not like we have he's never thrown more than 53 innings in a season. So it's not like we have any sort of sample size that we can go to and look at, how he's done. For whatever it's worth, at every minor league stop, right-handed hitters had an average like 150 to 200 points higher than lefties, and every home run he gave up in the minors was to righties. But again, there's basically nothing that we can definitively take away from that. It's just, kind of trying to look at what he throws and predict what he could struggle with in the future. And my guess would be right-handed power. And we have plenty of it in this Cardinals lineup. And then on top of that, you have Matt Carpenter in there, who's one of the best left-handed hitters in baseball. So I would still give him the advantage here. Also, with this being a day game after a night game for most teams, we do have some watered down lineups, as we've pointed out throughout the show. Not the case here. St. Louis has Yadi Molina still in the lineup. This is a good lineup for St. Louis. So it's one of the better lineups on the slate. I actually am pretty excited to get the Cardinals bats here.
All right. I've just been looking up because I wanted to see Hunter Renfroe batting cleanup. I mean, love it when he's going against lefties, or at least I do. One of my weaknesses is I like to roll with him. I had not realized how good his power numbers are against righties. I mean, like as good or better than lefties, and that's something that's actually been somewhat consistent looking back at the last the partial 3 seasons that he's been up. I mean, he's a toolsy as hell player. I mean, he was a touted prospect, yada yada yada. He has his raw power rating is 70 on a 70-point scale. His speed is 50 on a 40-point scale. And his fielding and throwing, like literally everything's off the charts for him. He just has some issues with strikeouts, but he has just been. I did not realize how good his power was against righties. At I mean, that's something I like to look at splits just to make sure I'm not foolishly missing something. And here's a guy I play a lot, and I was foolishly missing that I'm sure nothing escapes your analytics there, but talk to me here about Hunter Renfroe and some of these power hitters for the Padres. They are no longer the weak hitting sisters of the poor.
Yeah, I mentioned liking the hitters in this game, and I wasn't just talking about the Cardinals. I love that Hunter Renfroe is in the lineup here. Michael Wacha kind of has the same problems that I was just saying that I think Chris Paddock might have going forward. Wacha, his best secondary option is his changeup. Last season, he had the third highest WOBA, expected WOBA against right-handed hitters of any pitcher on this slate, and we're not talking about a slate with very good pitchers. So you get a San Diego lineup that has plenty of right-handed power in it now. I think that's a bit concerning for Wacha, and Renfroe being in it, really stands out. Him and Manny Machado, I really like, but also wanted to point out Eric Hosmer, who is someone who I almost never roster because he's a first baseman that has mediocre power. But since the start of 2017, against right-handed changeups, Hosmer has a 384 expected WOBA and a 274 ISO, which is obviously really high for Hosmer. That's the pitch that Wacha is going to go to try and get Hosmer out. So I like him more than I basically ever do. Franchi Cordero has power, even though he is a lefty, and I prefer righties against Wacha. Will Myers has power. Austin Hedges has a 201 ISO against right-handed pitching. So he's a high upside catcher option. Both of these teams, I think, even though they have implied run totals below 4, offer a ton of upside here.
All right. So Fernando Tatis Jr. Let's talk about Fernando Tatis Sr. He holds the record for most RBI in a single inning, Adam. What do you think that is?
It's at least 8.
It is 8. 2 grand slams in an inning. That I knew he had a big game. I'd forgotten it was 2 grand slams. That was back in 1999. But there you go, Fernando Tatis. All right, back to today's present day, Adam. We're on to the 4:00 games here. We have the Tampa Bay Devil Rays going against the San Francisco Giants. We have Jeff Samardzija, the Shark, taking the bump. We have Ryan Stanek, who is the opener. Is it Chirinos that will be the likely projected middle reliever?
I'm not sure. I hadn't looked.
All right, I haven't looked at that either. Let me go see if I can find that. But this one feels like a spot where we do want to give some consideration to the pitchers because fantastic pitching environment here by the Bay. Start off with Samardzija going against this less than fearsome lineup with Kiermaier, Zunino, Adamais, etc.
Yeah, I mean, Samardzija sucks, but anytime you're getting a pitcher in San Francisco, it's not the craziest idea to go to him, especially on what I assume is a 3-game slate, since this game isn't on any slate that I've
You are correct. It's a 3-game standalone, unless you play the all-day slate.
Right, yeah. So, sure. I'm never going to endorse Samardzija all that heavily, but...
Well, he only had a 6.41 xFIP last year, Adam. Come on. So, nothing here for the hitters. I'm not... Oh, I gotta close my wrong thing. Have you seen that DraftKings has been tagged? Yeah, so they've got a new code here. It's PLR, probable long reliever. So they have given that tag to Yanni Chirinos. So he will be likely the guy coming in. I forget that Tampa Bay has some funny name for it that their pitchers call it. But in any event. Well, one, I don't know that I like them designating this because even though they're saying probable, I can't wait till one of these guys doesn't come in and everybody throws a gigantic tizzy fit, which probably will happen at some point in a highly visible situation because that's when the gaps happen for DK. But Chirinos, it seems like a reasonable play here. 6,900 on DraftKings. We are looking at the 3-game slate, as Adam mentioned. So let's just assume he's coming in probably at some point in the second inning. Sometimes they let Stanek go, depending on how he's doing, how quickly he gets in. He can go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hitters or get, 2, 3, 4, 5 outs before he comes out. Do you like Chirinos in this particular situation? Tiny bit of salary savings, and as an SP2, now I'm kind of sad that they're flagging it because last year it was kind of tricky because a lot of people didn't realize this was happening. I mean, I guess I don't hate that they're flagging it, but this has the potential to just blow up in somebody's face. It's like,
Yeah, it seems like a low reward, high risk thing for DraftKings, but
yeah,
because I don't think the casual players that didn't know about the long relievers were complaining that they're not labeled, but now they're going to roster them or potentially roster them and get burned. So I don't really see the upside for DraftKings, but whatever. Yeah, I think that on the 3-game slate, Chirinos is fine. Really good park to pitch in. San Francisco obviously sucks offensively. Chirinos is actually pretty good. So, yeah, like it helps you get up to Carrasco. It immediately makes you contrarian because people still won't do it. So go for it.
All right, let's quickly touch on Texas and Los Angeles. Hey, Mike Trout, he really is a golden god. But yikes. 2 home runs last night, Adam. Angels had 3 runs. Not good times there if you had anybody outside of Trout on your team. The wild boar may or may not be in the lineup against Drew Smiley, who is a lefty. Boar, it made about first season and a half, or like his first 38 or 41 home runs all came in lefty-righty matchups. He has hit a few off lefties, and it's not like the Angels have many other options. So he could be in the lineup. I'm not really interested in him. Andrelton Simmons has been a little dinged up, but he is in the projected lineups. Trout is probably the guy we want to go to. If Lucroy is in catching, I don't necessarily mind that in the righty-lefty matchup, but not a lot of power here outside of Mike Trout against lefties for the Angels. But Mike Trout, 430 WOBA, 250 ISO last season against lefties. Pretty phenomenal in his career. He's just been an absolute destruction machine against them with a 220 ISO and a 420 WOBA. Anything from the Angels outside of Trout, and of course that does include Tyler Skaggs.
I mean, it's outside of Trout, I don't really like anyone from the Angels, but on this slate, there's really not great offensive spots to go to because you have a game in San Francisco, you have this game, and then you have a game with Carlos Carrasco pitching on one side and the Indians batters hitting on the other side. So there's just not a lot of hitting here. Smiley is not a bad pitcher, but I don't know, like outside of Trout, like if Simmons is in the lineup, I think he's fine. Zach Cozart's cheap enough. I assume he'll be leading off. That you can get there for some salary relief. I don't think there's any really good hitting spots, all things considered, on this slate.
No, and that's a really good call out. Let's see, going against Skaggs, you've got Joey Gallo can hit home runs against literally everybody. Mazzara, lefties, adequate. He's been a little dinged up. I think he had a sore leg or bruised leg, something like that, but he was in the lineup the other night. Odor, nobody really exciting on this side either. Anything bubbling up for you from the Rangers at all?
They'd be my favorite stack on the slate. I respect Tyler Skaggs. I think that he's a good pitcher, but Texas, I think, is just the best combination of talent and they're the highest upside offense on the slate. They have a 3.8 implied run total, which means that people will probably go to the Angels over them. It means people will probably go to the Indians over them. There's just more home run upside in Texas's lineup than any of the other 5.
And then looking here at the Angels bullpen usage, you've had Cody Allen pitch the last 2 days, and then everybody else outside of Luis Garcia has gone either last night or Thursday. So, Bard, Bedrosian, Justin Anderson, those guys have all thrown a couple dozen pitches. I don't expect Anderson today, but it wouldn't shock me to see Bard or Bedrosian in since they've had 48 hours off. And then, of course, they did not play on Wednesday. But looking at where relievers stand, sometimes that's a very important thing because if you get a team that's been chewed up for a few games, you can often find somebody coming in for the old take one for the team. What is your thought about Major League Baseball saying you can't have position players pitch anymore? Or it's on the table as something that they may enact in the next year or two? I don't like it.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter to you? Okay. What about minimum 3 batters faced for a pitcher?
Hate that. It takes guys out of jobs. It just changes strategy. Yeah, not a fan of that one.
Okay. All right. But it would shorten those Yankees Red Sox games. Although I think ESPN likes having those 4.5 hour blocks for their games. All right. Well, let's get back to the right page here as we look to our final one here. We've got Carlos Carrasco facing the Toronto Blue Jays, who have, I mean, they have good underlying numbers, Adam. They just have done a bupkis this season. They've been nearly no hit multiple times. We've gone to them several times. Is this the spot where they finally put up a 3 home run crooked number just because Carlos Carrasco will be the most popular player on this 3-game slate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Toronto would probably be my second favorite stack on the slate just because of that. It's a 3-game slate. There's no clear-cut good offenses, and everyone's going to roster Carlos Carrasco. So one of the easiest ways to win the slate is to just embrace the variance that happens in baseball and have a bunch of Toronto. But, if you're not doing that, Carrasco obviously is the best pitcher on the slate, should be the highest owned. Justin Smoke, questionable, was scratched yesterday, has missed a couple of games. Rowdy Tellez, Grichuk, Hernandez would be the guys that I'm most interested in from Toronto.
All right. And I just, one of the things about these short slates, it's all about leverage, especially on the 2-pitcher sites. You're going to be taking some hitters against your pitchers from time to time. It's inevitable. It's not a horrible thing. 1 or 2 is not bad. If you're taking 3, you may not like, you may want to rethink things. But we've seen both Osmo and Tom T.J. Kennedy, who is up there, or Tom J.K. on most of the sites. He's the number 7 ranked gamer. Osmo, of course, is number 1. These guys have just been making hay on these short slates by playing more against what the field is doing than actually looking to just, I'm going to build my best team, because they don't want to get, 1.5 times their buy-in back. They want a top 5 finish here in these incredibly top-heavy tournaments. And I think that's something that a lot of gamers are not doing. So if you're looking still for that, ever elusive edge, drop down in some entry fees, make some more lineups, and tell a story with your lineups in this one. Like, Carrasco gets his ass kicked. Okay, don't roster him. Who's going to have the best opportunity against him? Now, what are you going to do with your pitchers? Well, one of them's already going to be kind of contrarian if we think Carrasco's probably going to be on 40 or 50% of rosters on this 3-game slate. What are you doing that's slightly different? You don't have to go off the reservation much more than that, because you're already gaining major leverage against a pitcher who does give up home runs from time to time when he struggles. He's also incredibly dominant. So, where are you going to go? You never know what you're going to get with Carrasco. That's the crazy thing. It kind of reminds me a lot of Chris Archer as well. But in any event, just give that some consideration. There's a whole, it's not always just putting the best players on your roster. You got to take things next level with the way these contests are designed from their payout structure. What do you know about Mr. I'm assuming his name is pronounced Pannone, going for the Blue Jays here?
I know he's dominated the Orioles a couple times.
He's the southpaw version of David Hess, going back.
Yeah. Assuming Cleveland bats will have ownership because it's a 3-game slate and they're the second highest implied run total, I don't mind going to him. Same thing we just talked about with Toronto bats. He's nothing special at all, but Cleveland's running out a lineup that it does actually have Jose Ramirez back in it, but it's still not a very good lineup. I mean, the bottom 4 hitters in this lineup are Eric Stamets, Max Moroff, Roberto Perez, Greg Allen. It's not a very good lineup. So if they're going to be popular just because Vegas says they should be, then I think that leveraging against that with Toronto pitching is fine.
All right. Hang on. We just got some ownership here. Let me see if we have the early slate. I know we have the main slate. Yep. Okay. So just hitting the early slate, looking at pitching. Patrick Corbin, this is DK. Patrick Corbin is 52%. Michael Wacha is the next most popular pitcher at this point at 26. You've got Arrieta at 22. And then it's going to be mix and match. Pineda's at 20. Looking over there on FanDuel, you've got Corbin at about 40%, and then Waka at 16. So a lot of things are going to be concentrated there. I don't really see who is going to destroy Corbin from the Mets. Corbin could implode himself, but it's kind of hard to figure out what you're going there. So the leverage spot for that one, a little trickier. That's going to get us on here to our night slate, Adam. We have 6 games going off at 7 o'clock. Reminder, we will also have a live Before Lock and Baseball show at 6 o'clock tonight. That will be myself and Chris Spags breaking it down because we'll have the lineups and additional information for that. Adam's going to be writing the deep dive today. That'll be up this afternoon, focusing on the main slate behind the paywall. If you guys have not yet signed up for Awesemo, strongly encourage it. We have some tremendous projection systems here, both for popularity as well as player production. We've got that for NASCAR, we've got that for MMA, and we've got it for all the main sports. We don't have ownership for hockey, but we do have it for every other sport. So definitely give that some consideration. Promo code MLB Strategy will get you 50% off any 1 month package, and that does include the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. And that's the cheapest way you can get in and check out Fantasy Cruncher. They've partnered with us to make this deal because they know that our Slack chat is thriving, Adam, with teaching people how to use it and go in next level and set up rules and all of that. As Adam has found out by doing office hours Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock. So there we go. There's our sales pitch, Adam. They're crazy if they don't. You want to get in for free? I've got one more way to get in for free here. Take it from the top, Adam, as we hit our main slate here. We're going to start with the New York Yankees against your Baltimore Orioles. J.A. Happ. Can we get him on both pitcher slots today? Can we request that? What are you doing in this game? And will any Orioles grace your lineup? I think is a better way of saying this.
Yeah, I mean, Happ obviously in a good spot against Baltimore. Mancini's been hitting really, really well. I wouldn't mind going there. Renato Nunez as a leverage play is fine. He has some pop, and the same goes for Jonathan VR with second base shortstop eligibility on DraftKings. But overall, clearly Happ, one of the best pitchers on the slate.
Right. Let's see what his popularity is here. He is on the main slate. So I think it's going to be a big number. Here we go. He is, oh, wow, he's the 4th most popular pitcher. I'm going to send a little note. I think we that doesn't seem right.
There's a course game.
Well, yes, but Dylan Bundy would be number 1. So talk to me about Dylan Bundy here. One of the guys that you have watched. I believe he gave up, 41 home runs last season, head and shoulders above everybody else in Major League Baseball. I mean, hell, 41, that'd be great if he was a hitter. He's a pitcher. No bueno. But he's checking in at 52% right now on DK 6,900. So we have that nice price point there. And over on FanDuel, he is also coming in at number 1 at 27%, 6,300 there. Happ is just a couple ticks behind him, but he is also $2,500 more expensive on FanDuel. So this looks like it's probably influenced by a lot of pricing. I suspect that number will come down a little bit throughout the day. But talk to us about Dylan Bundy, Adam. He does have strikeout upside. The Yankees are losing guys left and right. What are you doing with Bundy? Is he a killer?
For one, I don't think that ownership will be the case. Just like, I mean, it's 7 hours before lock. It's going to change. There's no way he's that highly on. And I don't really want to get there. He's better against righties than lefties, which the Yankees lineup does set up good for that, but they just have so much power in this lineup. And going back and looking at his first start this year, I was hopeful for Bundy this season, or am hopeful for Bundy this season, with the addition of more analytics-based people to the Orioles coaching staff and front office, that maybe they would get him throwing his slider more and throwing less fastballs and stuff. First start of the season, 67.7% fastball usage, 18% slider usage. So not what I was hoping to see. That was against this Yankees team. Fastball velocity only averaging 91.1 miles per hour as well. Really nothing to take away from that start that has me interested at all in Dylan Bundy.
All right, let's see. All right, back over here. Yeah, that's just J.A. Happ, man. It's going to be fun tonight, Adam. It's going to be fun. On to our next game here. You've got Aaron Brooks. I mean, what a phenomenal story. Aaron Brooks, the football player. Aaron Brooks, the basketball player. Aaron Brooks, the baseball player, reminds me a lot of Dee Brown. Chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. But Brooks, not exciting. He's actually the guy I wrote up to target against on the main slate here. So I took some interesting notes. Did you know that he has played in parts of 4 major league seasons? However, it took him 6 years to play in those 4 because in 2016 and 17, no, he wasn't hurt. He just never made it out of the PCL. So he has a grand total of 66 and 2/3 innings pitched across 19 appearances, 7.3 ERA, 1.6 WHIP, and 6.3 K per 9. I just kept it at the basics because those numbers are so awful. Digging into it just didn't seem to be worth a lot of time because on the other side you've got Springer, Bregman, Brantley, Altuve, Correa. You know, if you want somewhat discounted catcher on some sides, Robinson, Chirinos can hit for some serious power or strike out 3 times, and then you've got Gurriel and Reddick. I think we're going to see the Astros bats wake up again. The Astros are not going to average 2.3 runs per game for the whole season. Adam, do you want to attack Aaron Brooks here?
Not really.
All right. Rain on my parade. Come on, get those thunderclouds. Take it away.
I mean, Houston obviously has a ton of upside. They're a really, really good offense. I just think that they're going to be higher owned than they probably should be because they have the second highest implied run total on the slate behind the Dodgers. They are facing a pitcher in Brooks that we don't really know much about, and there's no real reason to think that he's any good. But in his first start of the year, which came against Boston, there were some positive takeaways. He threw his slider a lot. He threw his slider like 25, 26% of the time, about 30% to righties. He had a swinging strike percentage of 12.8% in that start. He had a chase percentage of 41%. I'm not saying that I think that he's suddenly some like good pitcher, but I just think that there's a pretty good chance Houston's over-owned here and that Brooks is a little bit better than people give him credit for.
Fair enough. Still rolling against him. That's fine by me. But he is the one guy I do want to target against. In particular on this one, I know I will be joining the masses, but that's just how it is playing out for me today. Hey, here's your quick chance. If you want to get in on a free opportunity for a full month of Awesemo premium content, I'm going to drop this link in chat. It tells you how to upload the Awesemo avatar as your badge for Yahoo, DraftKings, and FanDuel. If you are placing top 3 in any tournament with 5,000 players a month, or 5,000 players or more, you get 1 month of free content. You need to follow the instructions because you got to take a picture, tweet it out, you got to keep the avatar on, etc. But we've had quite a few people claiming those lately, so that is a lot of fun. It's pretty cool. Now, let's see. The only change that we have is if you're in the showdown slates, there's a lot of ties. So if it's more than a 3-way tie at third place, then you don't get it. But I bet if you ask me nicely, I'll hook you up. So check out that link. And Adam, let's look to the other side of this game. You have the Athletics with a lot of power going against Wade Miley. Potentially a recipe for disaster. Wade Miley is another one of those guys that we love to pick on, but he doesn't implode nearly as often as we think. But he's going to go against a massive parade of righties that is kind of the bane of his existence. Over the last 850 he has faced, he's got a 350 WOBA, a 170 isolated power. Those are not good numbers. He is striking out just 18% with double-digit walk rates coming in at 11%. Where do the Oakland Athletics rank for you this evening?
I think that they're a good tournament pivot to Houston. Wade Miley last season had only a 284 expected WOBA allowed to right-handed hitters. He's not nearly as bad as people think he is. And if Oakland were projected for a bunch of ownership, I would actually be interested in Miley as an SP2. But I assume that Oakland comes in behind Coors teams, behind the Yankees, behind the Astros. And so it gives you a chance to get a lot of upside here with, power hitting righties against the lefty and Miley. It is a park upgrade for Oakland, especially in terms of home runs. Houston, not actually a hitter's park like people think it is, but it is a good park for home runs. So the fact, taking right-handed power here like Davis, Piscotty, Chapman, all these guys is pretty appealing in tournaments.
Right, on FanDuel, Mark Conha is 16%. The other notable hitters are between 9 and 11%, so nothing crazy there. On DK, you've got Chris Davis, Chapman, Marcus Semien, and Piscotty all checking in between 12 and 15%. So we look at that, that means they're going to be about a 10% owned stack. That is low at this point in time. For the potential leverage spot. But again, as Adam pointed out, it is not a slam dunk, and Miley is, we remember the bad times, but he also has a high tilt factor on him because you can be very, very angry when he gets 6 relatively clean innings against your expensive hitters. On to our next contest here. We've got, let's see, 4 to go. We've got the Cubbies at Milwaukee. You've got Mr. Burns, cheap Simpsons reference there, going against Cole Hamels. Hamels, your mileage may vary. He is facing a lot of Brewers that are very, very good in righty-lefty situations with Braun, Aguiar, heck, even Kane actually hits for reasonable power. The other thing with these guys, they don't strike out, which is a big part of where Hamels gets his points. Hamels is the king of allowing solo home runs here. Talk to me about Hamels versus the Brew Crew batters first here.
Yeah, I like the Brewers bats here. Just a really good lineup. Not a lot of strikeouts, like you said. Plenty of right-handed power with guys like Braun and Aguilar. Kane's a good hitter. Just overall, Yelich obviously is a great hitter, regardless of if you're right-handed or left-handed. Hamels had the second highest expected WOBA on the slate last season against right-handed hitters, so doesn't have that working for him either. Favorable hitters park in Milwaukee, and again, a team with like a 4.6 implied run total right now, which is very healthy, but isn't going to stand out on a slate with Coors Field, with the Yankees, and with the Astros. So you probably get them a bit lower owned than they should be, given the upside of the spot. Hamels also throughout his career has struggled to hold runners. That did not change last year, as he allowed 19 stolen bases in 190 innings. So it sets up well for speed guys in this lineup as well.
All right, and then flipping over to the other side here, going against the youngster Burns, we've got just a talent-laden Cubs lineup. Who knew it was Daniel Descalso last night that saw his number come up, and he had a fantastic game. He's the number 7 hitter. You still got the pesky Jason Hayward batting 8th, and then you've got your usual suspects with Zobrist, Bryant, Rizzo, Schwarber, Contreras, and wait for it, Javier Baez. This does not look like a great spot for the youngster here, Adam, but it is just 12 starting pitchers in our player pool. What are you going to do with Burns?
I like him, especially if he's going to be low owned. The Cubs obviously have a dangerous offense, but Burns has really good stuff. So yeah, I would rather get the Burns than the Cubs bats.
Look here for Burns. He is.
I mean, it'll change by tonight.
Yeah, he's just coming in at about 13%, 8,900. That price point on DK may keep it under or into the about 20 range. 20%, 22% would be my likely guess here. If you are going to target the Cubs, any in particular that you would go to first?
I'd look to the lefties first. Burns has an absolute wipeout slider. That's a pitch that is generally less effective against opposite-handed hitters unless you're able to bury it back foot against them. Then it's still really, really good. But I would give the edge to the lefties.
All right, on to our next one here. You've got Miami at Atlanta. I was all fired up to recommend Atlanta as my stack going there against Sandy Alcantara, and then I started digging into his numbers, and I do not want to recommend going all in on the Bravos this evening. Talk to me here a little bit for Alcantara. I mean, obviously he's only got just less than 200 plate appearances or 200 batters faced in his major league career, but he's been relatively solid, and even looking to him in the minors, he's been a much more surprisingly effective pitcher than I was expecting to see. I mean, these Marlins have some young, though not spectacular, pesky guys here coming up through the ranks, and of course they're all young, so they're going to take their lumps. But I don't think he's a guy I want to target. Talk to me about Alcantara and any of the Atlanta hitters like Donaldson, Freeman, Acuna.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alcantara's got good stuff. I had a lot of him in his last start against Colorado, but he was only like $5,000 in that start. The thing for me is that he's jumped to 8,500 on DraftKings, so I'm not going to end up getting there. And I am still very interested in Atlanta for a
Okay.
couple of reasons. For one, it's a huge park downgrade leaving Miami and pitching in Atlanta. Also, when he does struggle, it's normally with his control. And in the Colorado game, he was really good, getting ahead in counts. The stuff was fantastic, and if he's working ahead in counts, he's going to be good. But you have an Atlanta team that is very difficult to strike out. They put the ball in play. They have a lot of just good hitters, and I just think it's a pretty scary matchup for him, given that if he doesn't have great control like he did last start and throughout his career, or throughout the minor leagues and stuff, that's been kind of his issue. I think Atlanta can really do some damage against him.
All right. On the other side, we have Kyle Wright, a 23-year-old right-hander who made his, let's see, not his actual major league debut, but his first start a few days ago. Took a couple lumps there, got the loss, had a little bit of trouble with getting some base runners, some walks. That could have just been jitters making his first start. He did have 4 appearances across 6 innings last season, so this was really his first time in the spotlight. Looking at his minor league numbers, Adam, he is decent. I mean, he's got solid strikeout rate, 25, 22, 22 across his last 2 seasons there. He's pitched at rookie ball, high A, double A, and then triple A. Was his last stop last year before getting his cup of coffee. Solid matchup going against the Marlins. Are you interested in Wright here? He is coming in at 7,300 on DK. Is that SP2 consideration for you? Again, we only have 12 to look at.
Yeah, he's my favorite SP2 on the slate. Miami sucks.
There we go.
Wright's good enough. The number 5 prospect in Atlanta's organization, I believe. Steamer projection of about 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. Fastball, slider, both grade out as above average pitches. I like Kyle Wright.
Let's see. Looking number 5 draft pick overall in the 2017 draft. So that is always nice. I just want to see here. They have a nice little blurb about him. They do not. That's just a regular prospect list, not a profile. But that's someone that you will get to hear Adam's full take on, or read anyway, in the deep dive article, which will be behind the paywall. All right, we've got a couple games here. Let's roll through them. Adam, we've got, of course, the slate coming up here rather quickly. We're going to have another show here this evening, so let's hit our last couple here. We've got the Dodgers in Colorado. You've got 2 nice pitchers in Walker Buehler going against John Gray. The fans or the players are probably going to flock to the hitters here. Everybody seems to be relatively appropriately priced for the matchup when considering it's in Coors Field. What do you got here as we wrap things up?
I like Walker Buehler quite a bit here. I'm hoping people go to Colorado because that would obviously make the leverage better on Buehler. But he's the best pitcher on the slate in terms of talent, and you're getting a pretty sizable discount going because he's pitching in Coors Field. Hard thrower, good fastball, slider guy. So you don't expect the pitch types to play worse in Coors. It's just a matter of, obviously the spacious outfield is not advantageous and it makes hitters better. But, I think that Buehler is just too cheap for his talent level.
All right, and then on the other side, John Gray, calf cramp, I think, was what took him out of his last start. So he is said to be a full go. Tough matchup for him against the Dodgers. They are a really good team. Looking for some of the Dodgers, and fine with some of the one-offs, but a lot of them are expensive, particularly Jock Peterson, who makes his DFS bones when he's in Colorado. But we'll have to see who's in the lineup to really figure out what we want to do with those guys. Again, 6 o'clock tonight. live before lock. You've got me and Chris Baggs breaking that down. We will have the lineups at that point. Last game of the night, Adam, Boston at Arizona. Hey, the roof was open last night. No humidor effect. The roof will be open again this evening. We've got David Price, who is, a gamer. We'll just leave it at that. And then you've got Luke Weaver, who we want to go against, but his underlying numbers are still relatively well. I swear I just pick him on the bad days. Do you like either of these pitchers as we wind things down here?
No, not really. I've always thought people were way too high on Luke Weaver going back to his time with the Cardinals. Facing Boston in a day game in Arizona is not something that I'm really looking to do. I'd much rather go to Boston bats here. They're another team where, if people are going to go to Houston and go to Coors, I'll take my chances on teams like Boston and Oakland and Atlanta. So. Yeah, I like Boston quite a bit. Hopefully, they don't have a whole lot of ownership here.
All right. Wilmer Flores is going to be very popular in the righty-lefty matchup there going against David Price. Adam Jones has just been phenomenal over the first 2 weeks of the season. And then Eduardo Escobar, solid as always. On the other side, hey, it's Boston. They've got some amazing hitters. You want basically the top six and then throw in the catcher if you're looking for a discounted option. Any final thoughts, Adam, as we get on out of here and start to build our lineups with just 25 minutes left until lock?
Kettle Marte against David Price has some power from the right side. Coming off a monster game last night, I don't know if that'll drive up his ownership at all, but I like him as a one-off year against Price.
All right, gamers, with that, we're going to get on out of here. We'll throw this up on the podcast channel. I will tag the time for when we go over the middle day slate games, those ones that are going at 4 o'clock, and then, of course, the main slate, so you can skip ahead from that if you want to listen while you're out doing yard work or taking the kids to the park, etc., etc. With that, you can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EMACDFS, and, of course, it is Asimo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.